One of America's most anthologized writers, Jesse Stuart has always written about his own place and his people in the Cumberland foothills. His life and writings embody many of the virtues of the pioneer settlers and much that is unique in the American character. But they are the embodiment of something universal as well. His works have been translated into 15 foreign languages. As teacher and lecturer, Stuart has ranged from rural Kentucky schools to the American University in Cairo, Egypt. Jesse Stuart is one of Kentucky's natural resources, a part of Kentucky's heritage. He is at home in Kentucky. His works are at home all over the world. Here is Jesse Stuart at home, interviewed by Jim Miller, a Kentucky poet and teacher.
I've had 4 summers work in Peabody.
And was that done in connection with Vanderbilt, or was that...
No, it was, I went to Peabody a summer before I went to Vanderbilt.
I see. What was it like starting out as a writer when you did, Jesse?
Well, it was a wonderful experience. It's hard for me to tell you when I started out as a writer, because I was writing in high school, but I didn't send anything out. But some of the material that I did do in high school was later sent out and published. One story went to the Atlantic Monthly that I did in high school, Nest Egg. I wrote that when I finished my first year of Greenup High School at 16 years old. And then another one, Snake Teeth, was published, a short story. And some of the poems that I did in high school were published.
So you didn't know anything about markets?
I didn't know a thing about markets, and I'd never been told, and I didn't think about, you know, one of the things about young people, not all of them, but I was one of the young people that never thought of making a big magazine. I thought the little magazines were for me when I started sending material out. Because I was very young, and I got into the little magazines. Now, the first man that ever told, I got to Vanderbilt, and the first man ever told me, I told him about one small magazine. If I mentioned it, I believe the magazine's still published. And they had failed to take some of my sonnets. And they specialized in using sonnets. And I was telling Donald Davison about it. He said, well, Stuart, you're not for the little magazines. I said, what? He said, you're for the big magazines. And honest, I started sending the big magazine. Wow, wow, wow. They just clicked. Yeah. Right when I was in Vanderbilt.
So you found out about these other markets from teachers at Vanderbilt?
Yes, from teachers. When I got a hold of a man that published, like Donald Davison had, and reviewed so many books, and such a great teacher, you had him too.
Oh, yes.
We both had him at Vanderbilt.
Right. I'd agree. He's a fine teacher.
He's one of the best I ever had, Donald Davison.
Now, he advised you, you know, the typical situation of writers that's been reported over 40, 50 years in America is to come out of the Midwest or come out of the South and head for New York City.
That's right.
But you didn't go that route.
No, no. I didn't go to Hollywood either.
You didn't go to Hollywood.
I was
and
offered
write
a place
scripts.
there, good money, but I didn't go.
You went back to Kentucky.
I went back and lived within a mile of where I was born.
Yeah.
On the same land where 5 generations of us have lived, and I think it's a good place. In fact, I love it. I don't stay there all the time. We've lived in foreign countries. My wife and I have lived in 2, and I've lived in 3. I lived in 1 before I was married. And but just as quick as I get away from a foreign country, I head back for home. It's one of the finest places, and I could take all this time explaining why that we live in this north temperate zone, good balance of 4 seasons, right through Kentucky, Virginia, across through here. It's a marvelous place to live.
Yes, great. And even back when you were writing the poems that went into Man with a Bull-Tongued Plow, I believe you had that same kind of... there's a poem in here which expresses that idea of going home. Apparently you're away from home when you write it. I wonder if you'd mind reading that for us.
Yes, I can tell you where I wrote this poem. I was hitchhiking home from Lincoln Memorial University, and before I got into Berea College, along that road down there somewhere. About
over 25 somewhere.
Yes, I wrote this poem.
Yeah.
I was standing beside the road, and I wrote it. Kentucky, I shall return to you someday, to live out in your wind and rain and sun, and watch your trees and fields together run, and orchards whiten with the blooms of May. I shall go back and sit before the fires at home and tell tales with a fellow rover. Before I'm cold and the best of life is over, we'll tell of happier days and fighting sires, I shall go back to tramp the crimson leaves that spread like quilts upon the frosty ground. I'll take my gun and faithful hunting hound and be alone where wind and treetop grieves. Kentucky, your dwindling autumn streams flow out across old meadows of my dreams.
Yeah, that's the sentiment, and you did just that.
I did just that. That poem, you can tell it's just a little bit awkward, that poem isn't old, and it's written by a very young person. I mean, back earlier. I'd change some of that now if I'd rewrite that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we all would work like that. How would you compare, or how would you contrast the situation for a writer as when you were starting out and the situation that a writer has today? You've obviously had both.
Well, I would say it's harder today for the young writers because I think all the time. Now, like when I was down to Murray and we had this writing group there for 4 summers I worked at it. I got some excellent stories from very young and very older people. They're quality short stories, that magazine types. But after they wrote these stories, they'd say, where can I send them? And I'd tell them their chances were so little. You know, there's just not enough magazines. And they don't have the quality magazines they had when I came along. Through the 30s, we had some fine magazines going. And one by one, they've gone by the way. We had, well, look at the Curtis publications. Of course, the Post is now being revived, and they're making a great effort, and it's really coming back. They're bringing the Saturday Evening Post back. Wish they'd get the Old Country Gentleman back. What a good magazine it was. Collier's, look what a fine magazine Collier's was. They're an excellent magazine. I used to write for that. I could go on and name, I don't know how many magazines I've written for. And they were good magazines.
People think of the 30s as a time of depression, as hard times, but it wasn't necessarily that for a writer then, I take it.
No, you could manage to live, and that's all you can do now.
Yeah.
That's all you can do with taxes being what they are, because there's some, I don't want to go back to the Depression, because when I couldn't buy postage stamps and couldn't buy paper, and that book you're holding in your hands, a third of it was written on poplar leaves.
You wrote it on leaves?
I wrote it on leaves and tobacco sacks I'd find along the road. But when man has to struggle, if there's good in him, if he's got it, it's going to come out, the struggle. I think that, and I tell students that. I've seen students that I've had that had to struggle, and today they've done things. They've really done things.
Is there anything, though, that you would say that would be good about the situation today for people who are writing or who are trying to start?
Well, now they've got 2 ways of writing today. But to produce literature, which I wanted to do, I want literature. I want to write a short story. I want to write a novel, a poem, poems. But you can do something else now to make money. But where's it going to be you'll get paid well? You can do television scripts, or you can do movie scripts. Get into that. You can fashion and do that. I think I could have, as well as written a short story or a novel. I've done that. And but how do you never see a script in something? You don't publish them. Nobody wants to read the script. You see it acted. So there's money on that side of the writing. It's so much is turned that way now. And a lot of young people are going into it. Well, I'm the other way. I want to be, and I think I am, in the tradition of Faulkner, Hemingway, Scott Fitzgerald, and that group. They're older than I was, but I followed after that group of writers, and I want to be a writer, write books, because the book's going to be around. You can go in these old bookstores now and pick up a John Fox Jr. book or a James Lane Allen, look how long they've been gone, books. The book lives forever after if it's good. That's what I want, even if I have to take less in my life. Now, what does it amount to?
Well, it's not to say, though, that some of your books haven't been made into plays and into movies.
No, there's one that should have been made, but didn't get it. And they paid a good price for it, Taps for Private Tussie. And still they're holding the copyright on that book. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer bought that book. But the Army wouldn't let them make it because they said they'd never made a mistake in bringing the wrong man back. Well, now, we know better. That we have made the mistake in the Korean War. We made 2, and I think we did in World War II.
If you had it in your power to do, what would you change about the situation today? with
You know what
regard to
I'd
writing?
change about the situation? I'd put some good, I admire everybody who starts a magazine. They start small. I'd like to see them bring up a good one. Have magazines all over the country. Take care, start that literary, back to reading good magazines. I'd like to see that come for all the young people who are trying to write, and we could have all kinds of magazines, and by having so many, we'd get some mighty good ones. I'd go back to what we had in the 20s and the 30s in the way of reading material. We had it there in good magazines, and people read. They were great in reading short stories. This is the country. They didn't produce the first short story, which I guess goes back to the Old Testament, but this country developed the short story right here. So many readers and all, and we produced the short story writers in this country.
You mentioned the little magazines, and by little I think we understand magazines that are small and maybe circulation, but what can they do for writers? What can little magazines
They can
do?
help writers. They certainly can, and when I mentioned that, I would explain what I mean. I think the best magazines produced today, perhaps in this country, are by universities and colleges. Just to mention two or three, Southwest Review down at Texas, down at Southern Methodist. Southwest Review, that's a fine magazine. Well, Kansas Quarterly, look what a marvelous magazine that is. Kansas Quarterly, they produced, I don't know how many subscribers they have to those magazines, not too many though, but you get quality work. And then Arizona Quarterly. And look at these quarterly magazines all over the United States now. They have inspired writers, and they've helped writers. And these people have, through the colleges and universities, we have given our young a chance, and older people. There's scholarly articles in those magazines.
Yeah. A lot of your work has been associated with regionalism. I'd like to hear what you have to say on that subject of regionalism. You made a definite decision when you did come back to Kentucky, and yet your material has grown out of Kentucky, yet you've traveled, you've been all around the world and lived in various places, and your stories have traveled too. What does that mean for the significance of regionalism?
Well, that has been brought up. I did a paper once in defense of regionalism. I did it for a speech and never gave it. And now somebody asked for it for a magazine.
Yeah.
So it's with an editor. I did it about 4 or 5 years ago. I think after going over some of the great writers of this world, nearly all of them have been regionalists. They have nearly all had a basis for regionalism. In this country, now you can say what you want to, but there's Steinbeck, his area, his county in California.
Yes, that's
All right, how are you going to get away from Faulkner in one county, and down in Mississippi? How are you going to get away from the Carl Sandburg, the Midwest?
Yeah.
How are you going to get away from Robert Frost in New England? How are you going to get away from Jesse Stuart in Appalachia?
That's right.
I mean, it's all the same.
When you survey them, you see that everybody comes out of a recognizable place.
You're right now that area right now yourself.
Oh, yes.
You're
Oh,
Appalachia.
yes.
So am I. Glad of it. But I don't know why that I've gone places and it's regionalist, Jesse Stuart, regionalist in front of my name.
Yes.
Well, I think regionalists ought to come after my name. Have Jesse Stuart or regionalist instead of regionalist Jesse Stuart. I've had that everywhere, and here I am published more than some of these people who are not regionalists and don't proclaim it. I have been published on 6 continents.
Yes.
I've read books on 6 continents. Even them legally, some are pirated.
But that's a compliment in a way. Isn't
Yes,
it?
I'm tickled to death. Just got this big bull-tongue plow back from Japan, you know. Just got it in the other day, and it was. Here's where research comes in, which has great value for any writer. Dr. Hensley Woodbridge, that did the bibliography on me, he found where I'd had a book published in Japan. Well, he went to work on it, and he found it. Bull-tongue plow was published there, 490 pages, translated into Japan and published in 1943, when we were in the height of the war with Japan.
I'd say, yes.
Isn't that something?
Right.
I thought it was an honor to have a book stolen in time of war, a book of poems at that.
Yeah.
Well,
that's not the only place abroad where your work of. I've seen a list of about 15 or 16 foreign languages.
Yes, I've been that many or more. I've been published. Let's see. You can do something like this. Consider all the countries in the world. I think I've been in every other one of them with something.
Mm-hmm.
I've been published in South America. I've been published in British Isles, several books, Denmark, Germany, France, Czechoslovakia, every place but where my father's people came from, Greece. I mean, Scotland, and the country I love, Greece. I've never been published in either one of those countries.
Yes.
Can't get a thing in there.
That's
but I'm in the Mideast, though. Look, Arabic countries. I've got 2 books there. My thread that runs so true is used as a textbook in about 28 countries, and it's used in the French-speaking countries of Africa. And then I'm published in Taiwan. I'm published in Korea. Published in Japan, Australia. I'm published everywhere nearly, and yet regionalist.
A regionalist, though, but you go all around the world as a regionalist.
Yeah, it's going everywhere.
Yeah.
My work has, and somebody asked me why. You know, that's a good question.
Yes,
why? Why would a story come out of? I don't get them all from Kentucky. All my stories, I get them like one novel down in East Tennessee. You know, I pretty much Appalachia, but some
Daughter of the Legend.
Yes, Daughter of the Legend, down there. And I get stories. I've got many stories from Tennessee, many from West Virginia, Southern Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee. I've got them pretty much over a pretty good area. But I've got an awful lot out of my county, and I could hardly ever exhaust the material that if a writer can see it. But one of the things, I think, for instance, you know what one of the great symbols is for, it's a universal symbol in writing? Well, you are a man, a chicken.
Yes.
Everybody's got chickens. That nest egg story of mine went around the world. I wrote in high school.
Because people could immediately understand.
Level with it. And so now you can't do it with a love story, because over in Egypt, and yet in these Muslim countries, boy, they don't meet girl. Their marriages are still made for them.
Yes.
You don't have these love affairs and all, so they don't go there. But we think they do here, but they don't do it. So, but you get in. Now, here's another universal thing, is a snake.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
They're everywhere. And they're treated very kindly through the Muslim countries and through the Buddhist countries, you know. They don't kill them and all this and that. It's a different world. And I've done an awful lot of snake stories.
You certainly have.
Here's another one now. I had a book, the Beetus Boy Junior book.
All right.
The Beetus Boy, it was published in India. And it was translated into their language, one of their languages.
Yeah.
And it was successful this way. You know why? Everywhere you go, there is somewhere, some grandmother is trying to raise a grandson or a granddaughter. Got him. See, it's a universal. The grandmothers of what I'm trying to say is a universal symbol.
Yes.
She goes clear around the world too. So that's how my books have gotten in these places.
So if you simply concentrate on maybe a small region of the world, relatively small, but if you look at that and you see it clearly, you're going to find that life there is in many ways exactly like life other ways.
Other places, and that's what they said. You know what they said of the thread that runs so true, which I wrote is published in 1949 and still selling wonderful. And it's written from 40. I started out in 47, fooled around with it, and got to editing and took about half of it out, and finally Scribner said, you're not the editor, let us have the book. So I let him have it, and I wish I'd left some of the things in there. That was, but the Egyptians said, your problems, I just mentioned this, this is written only on one county, Greenup County and Sauda County, Ohio, only Portsmouth, across the river there, where it taught school, just that little area. And yet Egypt, with 30 million people, when I was there and taught, they said, your problems are our problems in school.
Same thing.
Same thing. Can you believe that?
That's fantastic.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
But they wouldn't do some things I suggested for them over there. There's youth coming along, and I said, why aren't these youth in school? Well, we've got no schoolhouses. We're a poor country. I said, teach in a barn. I said, I did. I taught 14 high school students in a barn. And I didn't want to see these youth miss these years, you see. I taught them under a tree. There's no rain falls along there. They
Yes.
had a school out under a palm tree, but they didn't do it.
Thought they had to have a building.
I thought they had to have a nice building.
Back, I think it was about 1957, I came across an article of yours in Saturday Review with the title, Appalachia,
Last carbon copy?
Last Carbon Copies. What in your opinion has happened since those times?
Oh, we're
Have we become-
finding out what we have held to and what we are worth and what we have given to the world. The world is real awakening to Appalachia. We used to be awake to the world
Yes.
out, but didn't take to it gladly. But now they're taking to us. Look what's going out from Appalachia. Look at the dances that's going all over Europe. And incidentally, your state has produced a lot of the real dancers, North Carolina.
North Carolina,
They've
yes.
really
Oh,
got them
my,
all
yes.
over the country.
Right.
And Brea College has helped send them out to different areas in Europe and all. Our dancers are going out of Appalachia the same as the Greek dancers have gone all over the world. The Greeks were great. And we've got we're getting a literature. We're getting a literature, it's two kinds. It's the Appalachian people who are native or on the inside who look out, and they write for Appalachia, which is in their hearts and their minds. Then we've got the other writer who comes out from and looks into Appalachia.
Yes.
And he's a different writer altogether.
Right.
And he doesn't know Appalachia too well. Some of them, they guess on Appalachia. You've got to know Appalachia to write of it now.
Yeah, those two different writers can both be looking at the same thing and see different things in it.
Do it entirely differently.
Yes.
For instance, our daughter writes, and she and I can take a subject, same thing, talk it over, and go write a story. Entirely different.
Different visions of it, different views of it.
Different views.
Yes.
We never crisscross, never close.
So it may be that that people in Appalachia, especially young people, are not necessarily becoming carbon copies of other Americans, but in some ways, other Americans are looking to us now
They certainly are.
for certain customs.
What
ways of
we've
life.
held and our custom. They asked me this question. They used to talk about cultures, and I've said this pretty much over the United States. When I've been interviewed, when I've spoken, I say to other people, I said, we are the only people, the Appalachian people in the United States, who has a culture. The other people don't have it, and there's a reason for this. They have been bombarded by so many different nationalities. You take, for instance, New England. Look how many different nationalities you got, and
Yes.
they keep coming. They keep coming. Well, they couldn't settle down to a fixed culture at all. Appalachia, they go out, but no one comes in.
Right.
See? And we hold. We got ours right out. You can just find so many words. And I know you've been over to England, Ireland, and Scotland, and Wales. We have what they still have a lot of it over there, and I think we're going to endure from this point of view. We're that stock of people, and that country over there, what all may be said about it, has survived for 2,000 years since the Romans. And they still retain their originality in different parts of those small countries.
Oh, it's amazing,
It's amazing
how it is. Yes.
Well, we hold that way in Appalachia.
Right.
You look what you've got in Appalachia, and I don't think time, radio, television, movies, going to school will ever take that out of us. We'll still be Appalachia too. Or as time goes on, we'll change a lot, but we'll still be Appalachia.
Yes. I've noticed that in certain speech patterns, certain words that would be current in Appalachian language were the words that you find in the finest English poets of the 17th and 18th centuries.
Well, let me ask you something. When you grew up, say you're younger than I am, much, but did you ever hear a barn called a stable?
Oh, yes.
That's out of Scotland.
Sure. It's a
Stable.
Scottish word.
That's what we never said the word barn when I was growing up. It was always a stable.
Right.
It was a stable. Now that's one. Did your mother ever get after you with a switch or your father and call it a shillelagh?
Yes.
All right, where's shillelagh come from?
Irish.
It's
Right.
Irish.
My grandfather referred to a light snow as a little skiff of snow.
Oh, we did that all the time.
See, and that's
Yeah,
a Scottish.
little-
That's a Scottish term.
Yes, that's
too.
right. Boy, you go back and you get those old words. And my mother used to say to me, Jesse, fetch me the hoe for against the fence.
Pronounced, yes.
Pronounced, remember that word?
Right.
Leaning, and isn't that a nice word, pronounced?
It makes a nice distinction, doesn't
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful word. It's better
Yes.
than against. See?
Right.
It's some of those old English words were wonderful. Maybe we better get back to them.
Right, we could get carried away here
We
with
get
just,
carried away on them.
with just the words. Well, Dr. Mary Washington Clark has written a book on a survey of all of your works up to a point in time called Jesse Stuart's Kentucky. And I certainly agree with something she says at one point in that book, that your work is a veritable repository of the culture of the Appalachian region. And a curious thing, the way I see it, is that your work, you have passed along this tradition, you have reflected that tradition, but you've become a part of it too in the process of doing it. It is it's written with so interestingly. It's written with great humor.
You know, we've got humor among our people.
If we didn't have it, we wouldn't survive, probably.
Yeah, we've been a bad way.
Yes.
And it's not the kind of humor that I've heard. One time I heard, this was used to be on radio back, and you know, they thought this was funny. Somebody had written a script, and it came out in New York, and it said, go sit on a tack. Sit on a tack. Well, now to me, that can't be funny. So go to sit, I feel pain, see?
Yes.
I'm thinking of pain.
Yes.
Now, our humor is not that kind of humor.
No.
It's so, I can't tell you what it is. It's take too long here.
It's
but we've
hard.
got it, and the way I'd get these things about some of these stories, I knew my people. I wrote of a man.
Yes.
Nearly every one of those stories, I wrote of real people.
Yes.
And they existed, and they were here. And somebody knew them, somebody liked them, and I know when that goes out, there's other people like them, and that's why my stories have gone well.
Right. So you think Donald Davidson gave you good advice back then? And
Oh, my. I tell you, I wondered, and I wondered what had happened to me, and I want to say something else. If I'd have gone the way I was going, I was trying to imitate. I had, and it was mostly Frost I admired, and Carl Sandburg. And some of my poems are imitative of Carl Sandburg in the early days. Davidson said, get off of them, you be Jesse Stuart. And to go back and write of your country as the Scots have written about Scotland, the Irish about Ireland. Now, where could a teacher ever give a student better advice than he gave me? So I went back and I've written them.
yeah.
And I keep on. And another aspect that I've had, I married a girl that wanted to, she's a native of my area, and she wanted to stay there. And we went back to the farm and fixed up a farm home where I lived as a boy. And she's all for this staying there. And I go out and get my stories. Now, if I'd gone to, if I'd stayed in a foreign country too long, I'd have got lost on my material back here. Even
Lost
the war,
touch with it.
I'd lost touch. The war almost threw me off.
Yes.
I was in World War II, and I came back, I couldn't write anything.
Well, it is a fantastic thing that has happened. You went home, but you've gone all over the world anyway.
Yes, I go out now.
Both literally and figuratively. Your work has gone all over the world, and you have gone all over the world, too.
Yes.
All because you went home.
Because I went home. That's not a bad title, is it, going home?
Jesse Stuart at Home was a Western Kentucky University television production.